The first time, Monica Jane saw her own handwriting predicting a murder. It was scrawled behind her bathroom mirror curved, familiar loops carved into old plaster that had no reason to know her name. No business knowing the tonight and the where. Before we get into the case file, just a quick note. If stories of hidden motives, dead ends, and unexpected turns are your thing, make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell so the next mystery finds you first. Now, let's open the file. A single mother in Chicago finds messages hidden behind her bathroom mirror, precise, time-stamped warnings of crimes that haven't happened yet. The messages are written in her own hand. When the first prediction comes true, Monica is forced into a spiraling investigation that drags her through hospital night shifts, skeptical cops, a true crime podcaster neighbor, and an old neighborhood secret involving her family. As she hunts for the source of the messages, Monica must face the possibility that the mastermind lives inside her head, or that someone close to her is using her past to script the future. Monica didn't mean to crack the mirror. She only meant to wipe off the steam and collect herself before her son woke up. The mirror was old, an oval thing with a dull brass frame from a different decade, the kind of fixture landlords promise to replace next week until next week becomes your lease renewal. It was barely 6. The pale square of daylight hadn't climbed over the brick building across the alley. The siren that had screamed past sometime around 4 had dissolved into early morning quiet, the cardboard hush of a city, catching its breath between night and day. She dabbed at the glass with a towel, swiping lines through condensation until her own face stared back at her, brown eyes rimmed with stubborn, tired, curls frizzed by the damp, a little toothpaste on her cheek. She leaned closer, kissed her teeth at herself the way her mother had taught her, soft scolding and soft love at once, and that's when she saw it. There was a hairline crack near the bottom edge, no wider than a fingernail. It wove like a river under ice, barely there unless the light caught it. She traced it with her pinky. The mirror flexed against the wall. The frame wobbled, not quite flush. She pressed again and felt give. Of course, she murmured. St. Bernard Hospital didn't pay enough to fix everything in this apartment the way it deserved, and her landlord's idea of maintenance was a shrug and a promise. But maybe it was just the hook that needed tightening. Maybe she slid a fingernail under the brass lip and lifted. The whole thing came up. Something held it, but not tightly, 2 rusty nails, 2 decades of dust. And behind it, a rectangle of plaster 3 shades whiter than the rest of the wall, like an unhealed scar. There was writing on the plaster, writing in black marker, letters slanted and looping, and familiar. Monica blinked. A drop of water slipped off the mirror edge and smacked the floor. Halil stirred in the other room. A soft sigh. She set the mirror against the sink as carefully as she could, heart thudding ridiculous in her throat, like a teenager sneaking back home past curfew. The writing ran in 2 short lines, careful and decisive. Tuesday, 6:40 p.m. Harrison and Keeler man in Bull's jacket. Don't let him walk home. Her brain did what brains do. It flipped the sentence upside down and back, searching for rational shelves to place it on. A prank, a former tenant's to-do list, the world's most specific and messed up reminder. Harrison and Keeler. She whispered to cross streets because that's what Chicago people do. Like the names themselves must mean something out loud. She knew Harrison, that long sliding ribbon of street by the expressway, but Keeler was farther west than she usually went. Bull's jacket okay. Half the city owned one. Don't let him walk home. Mom? Khalil's voice, thick with sleep. In here, baby, she said, because her voice worked better than her legs at the moment. She could see last night's shift etched into her body, an overdose they couldn't save, a toddler with a fever whose mama didn't have bus fare, a gunshot wound that arrived with no name and left with too many. Halil stepped into the doorway, his Spider-Man pajama shirt too short now, belly soft and brown. He rubbed his eyes with one knuckle, the way he had as a toddler. "Can you make the oatmeal with the cinnamon?" "In a second." She reached for the mirror without looking away from the words. Because there was comfort in routine. Because breakfast was a rope you could pull when the floor shifted. She pretended not to notice her hand, shaking as she lifted the frame back onto its crooked nails. The brass bit didn't catch right. The mirror hung slightly cattywampus, tilting the world. "Mom?" He followed her gaze. "What's wrong with the mirror?" It's just old." Monica turned the faucet on again, splashed water on her face as if coldness could explain anything. She glanced at the cheap battery clock stuck to the tile 612A. "Does Miss Jada still live down the hall?" Halil asked, more awake now. "She said I can pet her dog again if I'm gentle." "Yeah, after school you can ask." Jada, with the true crime podcast and the tiny pit bull named Maya. The kind of neighbor you meet once in the laundry room and never stop bumping into after. Out of nowhere, Monica wondered, had Jada ever lived in this apartment? It was a silly thought. Jada's apartment was at the other end of the hall. But the brain does what it does. They ate at the small table they'd found on Craigslist, the one with a scorch mark in the shape of Florida. Halil spooned oatmeal and told her about his science project day, about Mateo's new sneakers, about the math problem with the garden, and the rabbits he could not make sense. Monica nodded and made a face at the rabbits and didn't once say, "Hey, baby, I found a message behind our bathroom mirror in writing that looks like mine, warning about a man in a bull's jacket 2 train lines away from your school." She kept that to herself because motherhood taught you not every truth served the day. When she got to work, the writing lived behind her eyes. She checked in patients, printed wristbands, watched the red numbers above triage blink up another digit. She texted Tasha during her break, "You ever find something weird in your apartment?" Tasha responded with a selfie from her salon chair, a client's half-braided head in the foreground, her own eyebrows arched to the ceiling. Define weird. Like roaches playing spades or like ghosts? Like words inside the wall. "Girl, what?" Monica stared at the screen. Tuesday, 6:40 p.m. The way the 6 curled, she'd taught herself to write that way in 8th grade because the girl who sat in front of her, the one with the beautiful handwriting and the plaid barrettes, looped her 6s the same. She opened the hospital web browser and typed, "Harrison Keeler, Chicago." The map popped up. Her stomach dipped. Harrison and Keeler was near a stop on the Blue Line. It was not far from a little grocery Kenny, no, Morris, had worked at when they were 19. She closed the tab as if it were a snake. The clock on the screen said 1:48 p.m. "You look like you've seen a ghost," her supervisor said, drifting over. Pam was a white woman with kind eyes who could be soft as a pillow until a resident tried to skip the line, and then the pillow turned to brick. "You okay, Monica?" "Yeah, just didn't sleep." You need anything you tell me." Pam squeezed her forearm and moved on, leaving behind a wake of kindness Monica always braced herself against. The good ones, the ones who meant well sometimes, they were the hardest because they made you put your shields down. At 5:26, she clocked out, shoved her things into her backpack, and stepped into the taste of toothpaste mint and exhaust at a Chicago evening air. She could go home and make dinner and watch Halil race his homework like he was trying to beat the clock on a game show. That was the plan. That was always the plan. But plans and loops of ink on plaster don't hold hands easily. Her car coughed, then caught. It was a little gray Honda held together by prayers and oil changes, and it did what she asked when she asked softly. She slid south on Racine, then west, lanes bleeding white as the sun dropped. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tasha. "Explain what you mean by words inside the wall before my imagination quits its job." She didn't answer. She turned onto Harrison. The streets here felt different than her block warehouse bones showing through skin. chain link fences with their hair done, a rusted shopping cart abandoned like an idea someone had once. 6:33. She pulled to a stop a block from Keeler and parked beside a dented pickup with a cracked windshield. Her heart ticked like a second clock. She didn't get out. She brought the car seat flat back like she'd seen people do when they didn't want the world to notice them. She watched the corner. At 6:39, a bus hissed to a stop, released a handful of people into the purple light. One man wore a bright red Bulls jacket, red like an artery. He was maybe late 20s, a smooth fade under his cap, a paper bag tucked in his elbow. He stepped off, checked his phone, glanced both ways, then set off east, casual, like the city was a song he liked. Don't let him walk home. Monica didn't move. She could not run into a stranger and say, "Hey, a message inside my bathroom told me you were going to die if you walk." She told herself this was a test she would fail, and failing would prove the mirror was miswired memory, mold spores, paint. The man walked. 2 blocks down, a figure peeled from a doorway, matched pace. Another crossed the street, too fast for coincidence. Monica sat forward and reached for her door handle. Her fingers fumbled, missed. She fumbled again, hit lock. The lock popped up like a little silver knuckle. She shoved the door open and heard the creak of her own car, as if it were scolding her. She ran. "Hey," she called, breath tearing weirdly, because she didn't do this. She did charts and lines and polite smiles to nurses who wanted to know why a name was misspelled. She didn't do yelling on Harrison Street. "Hey, red jacket." He half turned, face puzzled, and then the first figure moved, a blur snatching at the bag, a shove. It happened messy. Everything does. The red jacket pushed back. A flash of metal. 2 sounds, not a movie gun's crack, but that dull thud Chicago recognizes without wanting to. The red jacket folded, sagging against the bus shelter like a kicked door. Monica's scream wasn't the kind that saves anything. It just made her part of the story. Somewhere behind her, a woman shouted, and a man said, "No, no, no," the words tumbling. The figures ran. Tire squeal. Silence for half a heartbeat, and then the city remembered how to have lungs. Someone dialing, someone yelling they saw it, someone cursing. She dropped to her knees in the spill of light, hands already moving the way hands do when they've stood beside trauma too long. "Sir," she said. "Sir, can you hear me?" Bright red against the red jacket. She pressed where she guessed a hole might be, pressed like she was holding the world together. His eyes flickered, snatched her face, slid away. "Look at me," she said. "Look, come on, look." "Police!" someone yelled down the block. Another voice said, "I'm on with them." Monica could taste pennies. She thought of Hallel watching a math video at the table, his spoon dipped in the bowl. She thought of the mirror. The first squad car's blue washed over the block. Then the second's red. She didn't move until a cop's hand hovered over her shoulder, not touching, waiting. She let the paramedics glide in, and then she sat back on cold, gritty sidewalk, palms slick, knees aching from the kneel. "You okay, ma'am?" The cop was a black man about her age, beard neat, eyes shot through with a kind of tired she recognized. His badge said Caldwell. He gave her a nod like they knew each other, though they didn't. Yet. "I tried," Monica said. Her teeth were chattering, but not from cold. "He's someone." "We got it," Caldwell said, soft but not dismissive. He scanned her face. "You stay right here. You're gonna need to give a statement." "I have to get home," she said, too fast, and Caldwell's eyebrows did something like a wince. She'd heard that phrase shouted at triage windows too many times to trust it. "We'll be fast as we can," he said. "What's your name?" He didn't write it down yet, like he wanted to make it real before it became ink. "Monica. Monica, I'm Detective Caldwell." "Can you tell me what happened?" She told it the bus, the red jacket, the shove. She left out herself, crouched in a Honda, reading a prophecy on plaster. She left out the part where she'd arrived because a wall told her to. Caldwell nodded, eyes on her, then past her to the paramedics, then back to her. He glanced at the clock on his dash when he returned to jot her information. "Why were you here?" he asked, and it was gentle but trained. Monica's heart stumbled. She felt her hand lift to tuck a curl behind her ear, the way her mother had, a nervous tell. "You don't look like you live over here." "My friend," she said, looking at the cracked pavement instead of his eyes. I was dropping something to a friend." It was a clumsy lie, and she knew he knew, and he knew she knew. He let it sit between them like a tack on the table. "If you think of anything else," he said finally, handing her a card. "If there's something you forgot to say, because this is a lot right now, you call me." His voice shifted a degree warmer. "It's a lot right now." At home, the apartment smelled like cumin and old carpet. The hall light was out again. Someone had unscrewed the bulb to keep the electric bill down. Monica turned her key with a tight hand and found Halil curled into the couch with the TV glow painting his face. Maya the pit bull's collar jingled from across the hall. Jada must be walking her. "You're late," Halil said, in that 8-year-old way that makes time feel like a personal offense. "Traffic," she said. She kissed his forehead and tasted the salt skin of him, grounding. She made mac and cheese, because when you've watched someone fall on Harrison, the night wants something soft to bite. She tucked Halil in and flipped his pillow to the cool side and stood over him a full minute more than usual. In the bathroom, she took down the mirror again. Her hands remembered the wobble now, the way it lifted like a lid. The writing waited. Tuesday, 6:40 p.m., Harrison and Keelerman in Bull's jacket. Don't let him walk home. Under it, something she swore hadn't been there that morning. A tiny dash, then 2 letters. M. "This is a joke," she whispered. "This is a joke." Her voice didn't believe her. She did something she hadn't done since she was 11, and wrote a poem on the wall behind the dresser, so her sister Chantal wouldn't find it. She went to her bag, pulled out a felt-tip pen, and began to write, letters careful despite the tremor. "Who are you? How do you know?" She stood there, stupidly waiting for the wall to answer. It didn't. She rolled her shoulders, put the mirror back, and let the day wash her while she stared at her feet. The tub offered the same argument it had for years. This city, this building, this body, this routine. Monica dried off and slid into a worn T-shirt. Through the thin walls, Jada's laughter floated, then went quiet. Her phone pinged. Tasha again. "I'm calling you. This word's inside the wall thing is giving me heart palpitations." Monica stared at the screen, breathing in. She hit call. Tasha picked up on the first ring. "So," she said, "no hello needed. What did your wall say? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how much should I be saving for your exorcism?" Monica told her. She told the words and the bus and the red jacket and the way the world hinged on a mirror that probably still had someone else's fingerprints behind its frame. She told her she wrote back to a wall because she didn't know who else to talk to. "Girl." Tasha exhaled so long Monica pictured her leaning back in her recliner, braids sweeping the armrest. 2 options. 1, you're tired. You're stressed. And your brain is doing the thing brains do when they're like, hey, you haven't dealt with half your stuff. 2, you know something you don't know, you know. What does that even mean? "It means," Tasha's voice softened. "Remember freshman year, when you kept having that dream about the red bike, and then you went to Auntie Pearl's, and she pulled out that photo of you on a red bike from when you were 3. And you were like, I don't remember that. And Auntie Pearl said, baby, that don't mean it didn't happen? Monica rubbed her eyebrows. This is not a red bike. It's all memory and mess. Also, Tasha added, a bright edge to cut the heaviness. If it is a ghost, It has better handwriting than you, and that's embarrassing. I hate you. You love me. Okay, look. 2 practical steps. 1. You call a cop you can trust. Is there one? There gotta be one. And 2. You sleep. Like actually sleep. If the wall writes back, you wake me up, and I will bring sage and a Puerto Rican grandma from down the hall who knows a prayer for this. Good night, Tasha. Good night, haunted girl. Monica dragged a chair into the bathroom and took the mirror down around midnight. She couldn't help it. She stared at the words, the way the marker seeped into plaster. She pressed her fingertip to the M. It looked like her May, not the neat print she used on forms, but the quick, slanted M of grocery lists and Post-its. Milk, bread, call gentle. It was the handwriting she used for the voice that belonged only to herself. You're not going to write back, she said to the wall, and her voice sounded like somebody else's in the tile echo. You're a trick. You're me, talking to me. The plaster stayed plaster. She slept badly. When she dreamed, the bathroom door kept opening and closing by itself. She woke to the whisper of rain and the grind of the garbage truck and the small, steady breath of Halil in the next room. She let herself imagine for a second that she had invented everything, that the night had been a story she watched, and folded into, then unfolded from. The bathroom smelled faintly of marker when she pushed the door open. She lifted the mirror with that now practiced tug, the nails whimpering in their holes. Below her sentence, a new line had appeared, cramped, a little slanted, letters pressed deep like a hand that wanted to break through. If you want him to live, listen. Thursday 5:15 p.m., Donnelly Park Playground. He'll have a blue bike. A splash, then a cold pull inside her chest. She read it again. Donnelly Park was 3 blocks east. Khalil's school dismissed at 4. The playground was where the aftercare kids went when the weather was decent. Blue bike. She slammed the mirror back on too hard. One of the nails bent and the glass shifted with a hard tick. She didn't tell anyone that day. Telling made it real, and real made it something you had to do something about. At work, she watched a woman sign her name with a hand shaking so much it looked like a lie detector test. Monica guided her hand at the bottom of the form. It's okay, she said, because you say that even when it isn't. You're okay. Between patients, she Googled Donnelly Park, like she had never heard of it, as if distance could make it less the place where she had once pushed Halil on a swing while he sang a nonsense song about noodles and space. At 4:57 p.m., she checked her phone to make sure it still said time. At 5:09, she told Pam she had to go, and Pam said of course, with her kind eyes, they were really keys that let you through a door. Monica sped through yellow lights and apologetic red ones. Heart crouched so high in her throat, she imagined a hand could reach in and pluck it out. Donnelly Park was that little triangle of green, not big enough to ever be truly quiet. A father too young to be a father pushed a stroller. A trio of teenage girls in tights and giant hoodies took up an entire bench without apology. The swing chain squealed a song that was not quite cheerful. Under the blue sky, under the long arm of the L tracks, there were 2 bikes. One was lime green. One was blue. The boy on the blue bike was small, kindergarten maybe. He wore a puffy jacket and a helmet a size too big. He was pedaling hard circles around the playground mat, face serious in that way kids sometimes get when they concentrate too hard. No one stood close. A woman on the far bench scrolled through her phone, glancing up every few seconds. His mother, probably. A few yards away, a man leaned on the fence, hoodie up despite the mild day, face turned toward the street. 5:14. Monica stood there and felt foolish and felt terrified and felt prepared to embarrass herself in front of every stranger in Chicago if it would tip the universe another direction. She walked toward the blue bike boy and raised a hand like she was hailing a cab. "Hey, baby," she called. making her voice round and good-natured. The boy slowed, suspicious, as children have every right to be. "Do you know her?" The woman on the bench asked, suddenly impossible eyes on Monica. The woman's thumb hovered over the screen. Monica realized how she looked. A stranger walking up on someone else's child like a headline's beginning. She held her hands up, palms empty. "I'm sorry," she said, trying to find words that would explain without explaining. "I thought he was my son has a bike like that. I thought." The man by the fence shifted, a tiny movement that meant nothing until it meant something. His head cocked. His hand slid into his hoodie pocket. There's a kind of quiet that happens inside noise, an absence that isn't silence. Monica remembered it from when the E-doors swung open and a gurney rolled in and everyone's voice fell inside their bodies. That quiet grabbed her now, and inside it she heard Tasha's voice. "You know something you don't know, you know." The blue bike boy wobbled, still looking at Monica. The man by the fence took one step toward the gate. The woman on the bench rose halfway and then froze, sensing something without naming it. Monica didn't know which direction danger would come from, only that it hung in the air like electricity before a storm. She crossed the playground in 3 strides, put herself between the boy and the fence, and crouched like she was tying her shoe. The boy rolled close, curious. She placed a hand on the bike's handlebar. Not hard, just enough. "Hey, buddy," she said. "What's your name?" He stared at her. "Ant." "Ant? That's a great name. You're fast, Ant." Her heart was trying to break through her ribs. "Can you do me a favor and ride around the other side by your mommy for a second?" The man at the fence took another step, then stopped, clocking the way she planted herself. He glanced at the street, at a parked car with tinted windows and a driver behind the wheel watching the park. Like it was a TV he couldn't turn off. The driver lifted a chin. Monica's bones said, "Move now." She turned to the woman on the bench, who suddenly looked less annoyed and more alert. "Mama?" Monica said, and there was something in her voice that made the woman blink hard and stand all the way up. "Can you call him?" Monica nodded at the boy. "Please." "Aunt, come here." The woman's voice rose, the way mothers make their voices taller to pull their children across distance. The boy pushed his pedal toward her automatically, confusion stitched into his brow. The man by the fence lost his angle. He shifted again and then, like someone had pulled a string attached to his spine, backed up and slipped down the sidewalk. The tinted car rolled slower, then accelerated, disappeared into the stream of after-work traffic. Monica felt the panic drain shaky, humiliating. Maybe the man had been nobody. Maybe the car was an uncle waiting. Maybe. Her legs threatened to fold. She nodded at the woman, a little lift of chin that begged forgiveness and offered none of the right words. The woman stared at her a second longer, then softened, something like understanding sliding into place. "Thank you," she said, not a whisper or a shout, and it would have been enough if it had been the end. But it wasn't the end. "Monica?" a voice called behind her. She turned. Detective Caldwell stood near the path, badge clipped to his belt, his coat open like he'd arrived in a hurry and hadn't finished buttoning the world. He did not look surprised to see her. He looked like a man who'd flipped a coin in his head and called the side he knew would land. "We need to talk." "I'm picking up my son," Monica said, even though Halil was not in this park. It was the thing that surfaced motherhood as shield, as lie, as truth. Caldwell smiled in a way that wasn't unkind. "I respect that." 2 minutes, Monica calculated. If she went home, he could follow. If she ran, she would be the woman who ran from a cop at a playground, and the neighborhood would write that down in its memory. She nodded. "I ran your name from the report," Caldwell said when they were a few steps away. Standing here, he seemed taller than last night, but that might have been because he was wearing a day face instead of a night one. It wasn't hard to find out where you work. I stopped by St. Bernard, and they said you had left. I took a guess you might be here. Why would you think that? Monica said, and her voice didn't crack. She was proud of that. Because some people are drawn to scenes after, Caldwell said, and some people are drawn before. He let the words hover for a second. I checked the call logs near Harrison last night. Someone called 5 minutes before it went down no words. Just a hang-up from a blocked number pinging a tower near your apartment. That could be nothing. Or it could be something. Monica stared out at the swings, empty now. Do you think I did something to that man? The question came out sharper than she meant. She shouldn't have been surprised. This is what Chicago taught you. Tune your voice to defend yourself before you know which instrument is being played. I think you might know something you're worried to say, Caldwell answered, echoing Tasha without meaning to, and something loosened in Monica's chest that felt like betrayal. He took out his card. I'm not your enemy, Monica. I care who did it. That's all. He handed her the card and stepped away to let her go, like he knew not to press a woman in a park. She watched him walk back to his car, watched him lean on the hood like he had all the time in the world and none of it belonged to him. She went home and found a new line on the plaster under the others, so fresh the marker still shone damp. You did good. Next, Friday 11:20 p.m. L. Stop at 63rd and King. Leave a note for yourself. The words felt like fingers she couldn't see closing around her wrist. Leave a note for yourself. Something clenched ugly in Monica's stomach. She thought of high school, of the way boys and men both told her what to do, in voices that seemed sympathetic until they weren't. She thought of the night she'd fled Morris after his kind words turned knifey. How she'd told herself over and over that leaving was a note she'd left in her own handwriting for her future self to find. Get out. She didn't sleep. When she did, she dreamed the mirror lay flat on her chest like a tombstone. In the morning, she stood at the bathroom sink with a toothbrush in her mouth and stared at the oval. She thought of therapy, the sessions she'd started and stopped when Auntie Pearl got sick and then died, and the money shifted to rent and school supplies. The therapist's office had smelled like lavender and paper. The therapist had said words like dissociation and adaptive response. Monica had said, I don't need a diagnosis when all I need is a raise. But the way the therapist had said, sometimes our brains build rooms and we find ourselves in them without the blueprint haunted her now. She called in sick. Pam's voice held sympathy and surprise in equal parts, like someone seeing a well-behaved student raise her hand and ask to leave early. Monica took Khalil to school, lingered at the gate long enough for him to turn and wave, because he always did, then walked home in a straight line like a person on a mission. She set her bag on the chair. She pulled the mirror down. She wrote on the wall, No. Stop. You don't get to tell me what to do. She replaced the mirror. She brewed coffee she didn't drink. She scrubbed the stove as if baked-on grease were a puzzle she could solve. She checked the bathroom again. The wall didn't answer for hours. When it did, at 2:17 p.m., the letters were darker, angrier, as if whatever hand wrote them had pressed too hard. You asked for this. You took the mirror down. Monica swallowed hard. The words were like being accused for opening your own mail. She pulled out her phone. Detective Caldwell's card lay on the counter. She dialed. He picked up on the second ring, voice careful, as if he had been coached to modulate. Detective Caldwell. It's Monica, she said. A beat. I'm listening. She told him everything, but not like a confession, like a sighting. She told him about the handwriting that matched hers, about the times and places, about the boy in the park and the man in the jacket. She didn't tell him about the dreams, about the mirror on her chest. She didn't tell him she thought she might be writing to herself across time, because some kinds of vulnerability get you help and some get you watched. Caldwell didn't interrupt. When she was done, he was quiet long enough for her to fill the silence with fear. Finally, he said, "I want to see it." "No," Monica said, reflex. "No one is coming into my bathroom to gawk at me like a freak show. I can come as a man who wants people to not get hurt," he said. "Or I can come with a warrant because you just told a police officer you have information about crimes that you're not sharing. I don't want to do it the second way, but I will." Monica closed her eyes. She thought of how many times in the hospital she had watched people wield their little packets of power like fans because they could. Caldwell wasn't doing that exactly, but the fan was in his hand. "Come," she said. "No uniform, no partner. You leave your cop face at the door." He came in jeans and a hoodie, but the cop face came with him anyway, attached. He stepped into her bathroom and examined the mirror like it might shatter out of principle. Monica lifted it. The plaster lay open like a wound. Caldwell stared. He read silently, lips moving a little. He crouched, leaned in, checked the edges, the corners, the smudge of marker where it had bled at the period. He didn't touch anything. After a minute, he stood. "You're sure this is your handwriting?" he asked. "Looks like it." She crossed her arms, a shield she could pretend was warmth. "I didn't write it." "I didn't." Caldwell didn't push. "May I take pictures?" "I don't want." "If you tell me no, I can't prove to my boss that I didn't just make this up to justify my gut about you." He lifted his phone. "It also means if something happens at 63rd and King tomorrow night, and I didn't take this seriously, I will carry that." Monica swallowed. She nodded. The click shutters of his phone sounded too loud. When he finished, he slid the mirror back up carefully, like he was afraid of angering it. "You should get out of this apartment," he said, an odd tenderness in his voice. "At least for a few nights." "I can't afford a hotel," Monica said. "And my mama taught me not to let the devil move me off my couch." "Your mama sounds like a good woman." She was. Monica didn't tell him Auntie Pearl had been more mother than mother after a while, when actual mother had chased her own ghosts with a bottle before unchurch-braided themselves into a rope she could climb back with. "You're really going to go to the L stop?" "I'm really going to go to the L stop." "Can I come?" He didn't laugh at her. He considered. "You shouldn't, but I know you will. So if you're going, you stand back. You don't run at anything. You don't play hero." "I'm not a hero." "I know." He slid his card back across her counter like an anchor. Heroes die. After he left, the apartment felt both bigger and more crowded, like the air had been rearranged. Monica stood in the hallway and listened to her building. The couple upstairs arguing about leftovers. The radiator coughing up old ghosts. A kid somewhere practicing trumpet with the earnestness of a prayer. She thought about leaving, the kind of leaving where you put your essentials in a duffel and call it enough. She didn't move. That evening, she knocked on Jada's door. Maya threw herself at the crack like Love in a dog suit. Jada yanked it open, hair tie between her teeth, braids falling free. "Monica," she said around the hair tie, "you got that look like the city smacked you. Can I ask you something weird? You have met me, right?" Jada grinned, then sobered when she saw Monica's face. "What's up?" Monica told a version of the story that left out the L stop and the police. Jada listened with her podcaster ears, good at catching angles. "So you have a physical space where predictions show up," she said, mouth stretching the words like taffy. "That's not ghosts. That's someone with access. It's my handwriting." Jada blinked. "That's a plot twist. Who else knows your handwriting? Ex? Sister? Teacher who never forgave you for that group project?" No one. I mean, people I love. And people you loved but maybe shouldn't have," Jada said gently, like she didn't want to feed a wolf, but the wolf was hungry. "Look, This building is full of secrets. Tenants come and go. You ever think the last person who had your apartment left something besides a falling-out window shade? Monica considered it. The super had half replaced the fixtures before she moved in. The mirror had been there. You think whoever lived there wrote to themselves. I think someone liked games. I think someone was running from or toward something. I think if you want answers, you should start in the basement with the old mailboxes where they stuff the packages people forget. And I think, Jada paused, I think if you let me, I want to help. Off the record, off the podcast, just neighbor to neighbor. I won't turn your pain into content. I swear to God. Monica studied her. Jada had that good kind of curiosity, the kind that could set a room on fire or warm it. Help me look in the basement, Monica said. They went down with a flashlight and two brave faces. The basement smelled like metal and mildew and a punctured bag of mothballs someone had once thrown too hard. They found a box with yellowed mail and menus, a wrinkled Cubs schedule from a winning year and a losing one, a stack of circulars for a church fish fry, half a spool of red thread, a Polaroid of a family that wasn't theirs mother, father, son, all black, all standing in front of a white refrigerator with magnets like countries. Anything? Jada asked. Wait. Monica pulled out a thin manila folder, not thick enough to hold secrets, and exactly the sort of thing that always did. Inside, 2 sheets of paper. The top one, a lease rider for apartment 3B with a name she didn't recognize. The second, a photocopy of a note, handwriting that was hers and wasn't, the same slant, the same loops. Monday 8:05 p.m. corner store at 59th and Halsted. Check the freezer. Jada whistled. Okay, that's something. She touched the paper with one finger, as if not to smudge the past. Whoever this is, they were leaving breadcrumbs. For you, maybe. Or for themselves. Monica felt cold bloom under her skin. The freezer. You want to go now? Jada's eyes lit in that dangerous way. Say the word. No. Monica folded the paper back into the folder slowly, as if the pace of her hands could slow time. Tomorrow, I have a date with the L. Tune in next time for 2 women make terrible choices. Jada grinned, then sobered. Be careful. I mean it. Monica dreamed the L stopped that night with the vividness of dread. She woke to her phone's alarm and the light outside, sneaking over the buildings like a thief who didn't want to be caught, but didn't mind if someone saw the shadow. She took Halil to school and kissed him twice, because once didn't feel like enough. She bought batteries and flashlights and a fresh marker she didn't know why she bought until she was home and writing. No again on the wall, just to see if it felt more like a fight if the letters were thicker. At 11:05 p.m., she stood under the humming light at the 63rd and King Drive L entrance, feeling the city's pulse flick faster in her wrists. A station smelled like old paper and hot metal, and too many breaths exhaled into a closed space. Caldwell's shadow found her before he did. You're early, he said. I don't want to be late to my own haunting. He didn't smile exactly. You stand by the pillar. If anything goes down, you don't move unless I say move. Don't play the cop. Play the man who doesn't want people to get hurt. He nodded. That man is boring. He says the same thing. Stay back. The platform wove a broken lullaby of footsteps and train screeches and murmured arguments. A couple in their 20s kissed so hard they forgot there were rails. A man in a work jacket ate sunflower seeds with a 1,000-yard stare. A teenage boy pretended not to notice a group of older boys until one shoulder-checked him and the pretense fell to the ground. 11:17. Look, Caldwell said, chin tilting. A boy 18-19 came up the stairs 2 at a time, hoodie zipped high, nervous energy sparking. He held a strip of paper in his hand. He paused under the map, looked around like a rabbit that knows foxes exist, then slid the paper into the gap between the map and the wall. Then he stepped back, shoved his hands into his pockets, paced once, twice, and disappeared down the platform. Monica and Caldwell looked at each other, the same thought spilling into the space between them. Caldwell moved like a man balancing on a blade, all caution and purpose. He eased the map's plastic cover up with 2 fingers and slipped the paper out with the delicate precision of someone diffusing a bomb. He unfolded it. The handwriting was her own. "Stop it. Whoever you are, stop. I'm not your puppet." "Hmm?" Caldwell's gaze flicked from the paper to Monica's face, not accusatory, not even surprised, only terribly certain that he had stepped into something and was now ankle-deep with no shore in sight. Somewhere below, a car backfired or a gunshot realigned the night. 2 figures at the far end of the platform snapped toward the sound, muscles coiling. The teenage boy reappeared, sprinting now, breath sharp in the cold air, eyes so wide they swallowed his face. Behind him, 2 men in plain hoodies moved too fast to be casual. Caldwell swore under his breath and started to move. Monica's hands closed into fists without instruction. "Stay," Caldwell said, the word a boundary he tried to draw with breath alone. And then the night did what it does when you think you're ready for it. It changed its mind. A train's headlight curved around the bend like a promise. The boy on the platform ran toward it, wild. One of the men reached. Caldwell yelled something Monica didn't catch. The boy spun, slipped. His heel caught the lip of the platform. His body pitched. The train bell screamed. Monica moved. She didn't mean to. She didn't think. Her body took the picture and put her inside it. She dove and grabbed at fabric and caught the edge of the boy's hoodie, like it was a rope thrown down a well. Caldwell's hand closed over her wrist and yanked, and for a second they were a chain, the boy, Monica, Caldwell, the train, the city, and then the boy's body rolled into her, heavy, and Caldwell dragged both of them back with a grunt that sounded like a prayer. The train whooshed by, slicing the air, an inch from tragedy that would have become legend within the hour. The boy lay on the concrete, chest heaving, eyes on the ceiling like he was trying to find God in the fluorescence. The men in hoodies had vanished, melt quick into the crowd in corridors. Caldwell stayed crouched, one hand on the boy's shoulder, the other on the ground, like he didn't trust gravity not to switch sides. He looked at Monica and said nothing, and said everything with his eyes. Over the boy's shoulder, on the pillar where someone once carved a heart, someone had written in blue marker a single word that made Monica's blood seize. Soon. She stared at it, at the cheap ink bleeding into cement, at the way the word leaned, as if it had been written by someone her height, holding a marker like a knife. The boy coughed. "You okay?" Monica asked, and realized her voice was shaking so much it fell apart into pieces. "What's your name?" "Rico," he said, a shred of sound. They wanted, I don't know." "I don't know." Caldwell's radio crackled to life with a question he ignored. He squeezed Rocco's shoulder, then stood, the hinge of his jaw working. He glanced at the blue word on the pillar and then away, as if superstition had reached out and tapped him on the chest. "Okay," he said, not to anyone and to both of them. "Okay." Monica followed his gaze back to the pillar. Soon. She didn't know if she had written it, would write it, or if someone was teaching her the shape of a future she already feared. She thought of the plaster's next line appearing in neat loops, of the freezer at 59th and Halsted, of the blue bike, of Harrison and the red jacket and her hands pressed against a stranger's life. She thought of Hallel asleep under a sky he trusted. She thought of the mirror. She let herself look at Caldwell then, really look. He looked back, steady, like a man who had decided they were a team whether they'd signed up or not. When she got home after midnight, the mirror in the bathroom looked normal again. The brass oval every apartment has, the place lipstick stains learned the call home. She lifted it anyway. On the plaster, the new line sat where it always did, as if someone had waited for her to return before setting it down.
You are the one who survived.
The freezer was worse in daylight. Dawn turned Chicago into a tired soldier. Streets gray, sky ash-colored, the kind of morning when everything smelled like concrete and old rain. Monica parked 2 blocks from the corner store on 59th and Halsted, her hands locked tight to the wheel. It looked like every corner store. Bars on the window, faded lotto signs, an icebox with its paint chipped. She could almost laugh at the ordinariness of it, how something so monstrous could sit in the skin of something so everyday. She had told no one, not Chada, not Tasha, not even Caldwell. But she had seen the words soon bleeding blue into concrete at the L stop. She wasn't waiting anymore. The bell above the store door jingled. A man behind the counter glanced up, nodded. Monica walked straight to the freezer against the back wall. She pulled open the heavy glass door. Cold rushed over her face. Inside, plastic bags of ice crusted with frost leaned against one another. Behind them, taped against the back wall, was a thick envelope. Her heart stuttered. She tugged it free. She didn't even check if the man behind the counter noticed. She walked out with the envelope in her bag, her breath ragged, the bell jingling behind her like an afterthought. In her car, she tore it open. Inside were photographs. Old Polaroids, color faded to near sepia. A boy on a porch step with knees scabbed raw. A young man in a bull's jacket grinning, arms slung around a friend. A child's birthday party, blue balloons in the background. Her throat closed, because the handwriting on the back of each photo was hers. But these weren't her memories. One photo showed a little girl with barrettes in her hair, smile gap-toothed, a cake in front of her with 7 candles. On the back, Monica, age 7. Don't forget, her pulse went hollow. She didn't remember this birthday. Not the cake, not the house, not the little boy standing next to her dark eyes, solemn, holding a toy truck like a secret. The last photo was different. Not a Polaroid, but glossy print. It showed the inside of a basement room. Cracked cement floor, a chair in the middle. Duct tape on the chair arms. A dark stain under the legs. On the back, the handwriting said, "It started here. Finish it." She dropped the photo like it burned. Her skin crawled. Her phone buzzed. Caldwell. She didn't answer. She couldn't. She drove without thinking, the city passing in smears of brick and billboard. She ended up outside Jada's apartment, her own mirror just one wall away from hers. Jada answered with a toothbrush in her mouth, hair half braided. "Jesus, Monica, what?" Monica shoved the photos into her hands. Jada stared, foam clinging to her lip. She wiped it off, flipped through the stack, eyes widening. This is you." "No," Monica whispered. "I don't remember." Jada's voice lowered. "That doesn't mean it isn't you." Monica collapsed onto the couch, head in her hands. "Someone's rewriting me. Or I've been rewritten already." The bathroom door down the hall creaked open. Both women froze. Monica hadn't touched that mirror since yesterday. But the sound came again, the slow, deliberate scrape of nails pulling from plaster. She ran, Jada on her heels, and found the mirror hanging just slightly ajar, crooked, as if the wall had breathed out. Behind it, fresh words glared in her looping hand. Basement. Tonight, bring Caldwell. Her stomach dropped. That night, they stood outside the building's basement door. Caldwell was there, jaw tight, hands buried in his jacket pockets. He hadn't argued when she showed him the message. He hadn't tried to reason it away. He had just said, "Okay, let's go together." The basement smelled of rust and mildew. Their flashlights cut cones through the dark. Pipes groaned overhead like voices in pain. Monica led them to the far corner, past the old mailboxes, past stacks of forgotten paint cans. The Polaroid had been right. There, half hidden behind a stack of broken chairs, was the room. Small, windowless, cement floor cracked in a spiderweb. A wooden chair sat in the middle, legs scarred, duct tape residue clinging like dried skin. Monica couldn't breathe. She walked inside. On the wall, faint beneath peeling paint, were words scratched by something sharp. "Help me." Her flashlight trembled. "I've been here before." The words left her without permission. "I don't remember it, but I have." Caldwell's voice was low. "Whoever used this room, they used it for a long time." Chada whispered, "What if it was you?" Monica spun. It wasn't. But her certainty crumbled, because the plaster above the scratch marks had fresh writing. Neat, black marker, her hand again. "You were the one who survived. That's why you remember. Don't run from it. Expose them." Caldwell stepped close, his flashlight steady. "Expose who?" From the shadows, a sound answered. A footstep, then another. A figure stepped into the cone of light. It was her sister, Chantal. Older now, face lined with years of wear, eyes glassy. She looked at Monica like someone waking from a long sleep. "You weren't supposed to remember," Chantal whispered. "I left the messages so you'd stop digging. I was protecting you." Monica's blood froze. "Protecting me from what?" Chantal's mouth trembled. "From the truth. From what Daddy did. From what he made us do in this basement." Silence rang like a church bell. Caldwell stiffened. "Your father." Chantal's voice cracked. "He brought them here. Kids. Runaways. He said we had to help, or he'd—" She broke off, sobbing. "I tried to shield you. I made you forget. I wrote the warnings so you'd never find this room again." Monica's world tilted. She saw flashes, images that weren't memories, but wanted to be. The scrape of duct tape, the echo of screams swallowed by cement. "No," Monica said, shaking. "No, I saved one. The boy with the truck." Her voice fractured. She dropped to her knees, the weight of it collapsing her body. Caldwell knelt beside her, hand firm on her shoulder. "You survived," he said softly. "And you remembered enough to stop this from happening again. That matters." Chantal sobbed into her hands. "I couldn't carry it anymore. I thought if you stayed blind, you could be free." Monica stood, shaking but solid now. "Free? There's no free. There's only truth. And we're going to drag it into the light." She turned to Caldwell, eyes fierce through her tears. "Arrest her if you have to, but don't let this die down here. Don't let them call it just another cold case. These kids deserve better." Caldwell nodded, face solemn. "They will." Weeks later, the basement was sealed with police tape. The story spread whispers first, then headlines. A respected man, their father, once the pillar of a South Side block, unmasked as a predator long buried. Survivors came forward. Files were reopened. Chantal chose confession over silence. She told everything. And Monica finally slept. Not soundly, not always, but without mirrors screaming at her. The last time she lifted the bathroom mirror, the wall was blank. No handwriting. Just plaster, scarred but silent. She stared at it for a long time. Then she picked up the marker and wrote in her own hand, certain this time. "We're still here, and we tell the story now." She pressed the mirror back against the wall, her reflection steadier than it had been in years. Behind her, Khalil's laughter drifted from the living room. The city's night sirens sang their usual song. And for the first time, Monica didn't flinch. She wasn't haunted anymore. She was history's witness. and she had decided to speak. What you just heard wasn't the full story. It was the part someone tried to bury. The part that didn't fit the headline. The part where a person, not a suspect, was lost in the process. This case showed us what happens when the system moves too fast. Or not at all. When suspicion weighs more than truth. When justice shows up late or never. But here's the thing. If these stories don't leave us asking questions, they'll keep repeating with different names. So if this one meant something to you, don't just move on. Talk about it. Question it. Pass it on. Because silence protects the wrong side of history. And sometimes, the only thing standing between truth and erasure is someone who chooses to care. Like, share, comment. Let the next chapter begin with awareness, not regret.